All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody finds the show. We had some of those hiccups this morning. So I'm going to real quick take a peek and make sure we are actually live everywhere we're supposed to be. Looks like I'm seeing us on YouTube. Want to make sure everywhere we're supposed to be. Yep. And I hope everybody can hear me because we were having some trouble with the audio yesterday. Not sure what that was all about. So good morning, everybody. We're going to be talking this morning about Biden's farewell address, which, I mean, let's be real, it was pretty pitiful. So let's just go ahead and hop into it.
Speaking to you tonight from the Oval Office. Before I begin, let me speak to important news from earlier today. After 8 months of nonstop negotiation.
Oh, and I'm having an audio issue already. Y'all let me know.
By my administration, a ceasefire
Dad says it sounds good.
deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas. The elements of which I laid out in great detail.
It does not sound great on my end.
This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans. This will be my final address to you from the American people from the Oval Office.
Okay, so let me back up a little bit.
This will be my final address to you from the American people from as Americans. Fully informed, my team. And a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas.
Okay, so right off the rip, Joe Biden has just come in and taken credit for the negotiation, the release of hostages, and that right there, like he's barely even gotten started, and he's already telling porky pies, right? Let me remind you guys, like this is from just a couple days ago.
If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is.
So Biden wants us to believe that the thing that he couldn't get done for the last 2 years, year and some change, suddenly it gets done, 4 days before Donald Trump's inauguration. And it happened because Joe Biden's team was doing such a good job of negotiating with the terrorists and negotiating for the release of the hostages. Bullshit. Like, I mean, I don't know how much more to say about it, but for those of you who didn't actually watch, and I suspect that it went relatively unwatched, but it's worth talking about, who didn't actually watch the address last night. Well, quite simply, Joe Biden tried to take credit for everything from the peace talks that he frankly had nothing to do with, all the way up to curing cancer eventually, right? So, and he ended it by saying, look, it's gonna take decades to see all the benefits from this administration, but we planted those seeds. Right. We know this game. We know this game. Okay. Obama blamed Bush for the entire time he was in office. Obama was in office for 2 terms, 8 years. And for the entire time he was in office, everything that was wrong with the country was Bush's fault. And let's be fair, he didn't try to take credit for anything that went right because there was nothing to take credit for. Now, fair play to Obama. Like we've been talking a little bit about how the housing crisis was the fault of government, and that was due to some Bush policy nonsense, forcing the banks to write mortgages that they couldn't back. So, fair play to Obama. That was on Bush. But after 8 years in office, my man, you haven't corrected course, right? It may have been his fault that a problem started, but if the problem continues to persist, at some point, the buck has to stop with you, my man. It really is that simple. Now, so Biden goes on in this rambling speech, and I want you to listen not just to what he's saying here, but listen to the way he's saying it. When I say the way he's saying it, listen to his speech patterns, listen to his voice, listen to his speech impediment. He sounds like he doesn't sound like he's sober. Listen.
This is a dangerous country, and that's the danger. Give me great concern.
Let me back that up a little bit.
I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous country, and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. The dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked.
You're right. There are dangerous consequences if the abuse of power is left unchecked. For example, Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. And I want you guys to remember this. Whenever you hear him talking about that, oh, he's a convicted felon. You don't even need to go down the whole rabbit hole like we've done on the show. We've discussed in detail how that trial, how that whole thing was just completely a total miscarriage of justice. Whenever somebody says he's a convicted felon, ask him this one simple question. One question that shuts down the whole thing. What felony was he convicted of? And I'm not going to tell you the answer because there isn't one. That is the answer is that there isn't an answer. He was not convicted of a felony. They made him a convicted felon without charging him of a felony, right? The legal argument is that he committed 34 misdemeanors. And let's, for the sake of argument, grant that that's what happened. But those 34 misdemeanors were well beyond the statute of limitations, and the only way they were brought was by making the argument that they were committed in service of a felony, in service of the furtherance of a felony. And then he was never charged, never tried, never convicted of a felony to justify that claim. There is no felony. So the idea that Donald Trump is a convicted felon is an absolute legal fiction, right? But how did that happen? Unchecked, accumulated, centralized power in the hands of a few corrupt, wealthy elites like the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens, right? The Schumers, the Pelosi's, etc. There you go. So Biden's right. He's absolutely right when he says that if you let people like him near the office, near the levers of power, the result is crime, not just corruption, but outright criminality. This man has been in charge of one of the most successful money laundering and child trafficking operations in human history. Right? Okay, so maybe he's not as bad as Obama, who is the most prolific and successful slave trader in modern history, at least. But the level to which he has enabled child trafficking and engaged in, damn it, I just clicked the wrong button, and engaged in money laundering is just unbelievable. And then You know what? I might be about to run out of stuff to talk about because, okay, there was a lot to cover throughout the speech, but there were really only three main points that I wanted to talk about. And I may have just committed the sin of being more concise than I usually am.
6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech industry.
Okay, before he finishes that sentence, let me just, that's part of what I was saying. Joe Biden did not have a stutter 10 years ago, right? He has a stutter. You shouldn't make fun of him for the way he speaks. He has a stutter. He has a stutter. No, he doesn't. He didn't. And that's not a thing that was ever mentioned until the dementia started to whoop his ass on live television. Okay? And that doesn't just sound like he's deteriorating. That sounds like there are some chemicals involved. I mean, just look at his face. That he's got a bit of stroke face going on. The man is not doing well.
Later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well.
A tech industrial complex. I wonder what he must be concerned about censorship and undue interference in the U.S. elections and politics. That's it, right?
Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies.
He just said, he just said that social media is giving up on fact-checking like that's a bad thing. Okay. I covered this the other day pretty extensively. Wow. Joy Reid had a thing that she put out the other day. What kind of people don't want fact checking? What kind of trash are you wanting to post out there, you conservatives that are against fact checking? And I pointed it out and went into great detail on how all that works. The fact checkers, especially on Facebook, they were especially prominent on Facebook. What they were doing is they would generate an article that was not legitimately a fact check or was outright false. But then the Facebook partnering program that they work through would adhere that fact check to somebody else's content. So even before you get into all the problems with the fact checkers being unreliable and in fact outright a captured entity, because fact checking always goes one way. Fact checking always goes one way. Everything that the Democrat Party says is the God's gospel, and everything that is not exactly what they want you to believe is Russian propaganda created by right-wing white supremacist extremists, without exception. And the fact checking that he's talking about, let's think about this. We were told that there were very fine people on both sides. We were told that Trump wanted us to drink bleach. We were told that the vaccine was 100% guaranteed perfectly effective. Right? Rachel Maddow famously told us, if you get the vaccine, you cannot catch COVID. You cannot spread it to anyone else. It stops with you. We had Fauci tell us masks are a bad idea. They're just going to make you feel, unreliably safe, and then cause you to make more risky choices in your life. And then, a couple weeks later, he flip-flops and is starting to talk about double and triple and quadruple masking. And that's the kind of stuff that the fact checkers gave us. What did the fact checkers give us? The fact checkers gave us the Russia hoax, which we now know not only to have been incorrect. It didn't turn out that the original speculation was mistaken. It turned out that all of the information that was generated in relation to that whole debacle, the Russia collusion hoax, was actively generated, was positively created by the Hillary Clinton campaign, laundered through the Perkins Coie law firm. Right? That's what the fact checkers were. That's what the misinformation was. What did the fact checkers do during COVID? They removed doctors, actual medical doctors, who conducted legitimate experiments and studies and said, we have these concerns. They didn't say the virus doesn't work. They said, we have these concerns about side effect risks. We have these concerns about efficacy. By the way, the virus is essentially, you're essentially guaranteed to survive if you catch the virus, unless you have significant comorbidities and are beyond the age of life expectancy, right? The fact checkers got it wrong every time, over and over again. So much so that they strain Hamlin's razor, right? Never attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence. Well, okay, that's fair. Never attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence. But there's a certain level of incompetence, once repeated, can no longer be excused away as unintentional. When government does a thing, if it doesn't look like it went the way that it was supposed to, then you were bamboozled, right? Government never gets anything wrong. I'm going to say that again, and that probably sounds on the face of it like an outrageous statement to come from somebody like me, who I'm not a big fan of government, but I want you to understand what I'm saying and listen carefully as I say that again. The government never gets anything wrong. Every time the outcome occurs, that was the intent. Now, you may not get what they told you they wanted to get, right? When Obamacare came out, we were told that it was going to make healthcare affordable for everybody. It was going to improve access. It was going to increase the number of doctors and nurses and physicians that were available. Everybody would have more benefits, and your health insurance premiums would go down. It would be cheaper. It would be affordable. Well, we were going to take care of all the ridiculous high deductibles and all that. And the opposite of that happened. They didn't get it wrong. They lied to you, and then they got exactly what they wanted to. Right? So when I say that the government never gets it wrong, my point is that if you get a bad outcome from a government policy, that was the intent to begin with. And we don't have to speculate on the Obamacare thing, especially. We don't have to speculate on that point. We have Gruber, one of the architects of the Obamacare plan to begin with, explaining explicitly in no uncertain terms that the plan was for Obamacare not to work correctly, for the Affordable Care Act to cause an inflation curve in the health insurance industry in order to force the American people to accept a single-payer insurance plan. Now, the fact checkers, we know from the Twitter files, they were all in bed. They were all in bed with the Biden administration and the federal government and the Biden campaign before he was inaugurated to conduct a massive propaganda campaign against Donald Trump. The U.S. State Department is funding foreign entities to spend ad campaign buys on social media influencers to artificially inflate otherwise unknown influencers to raise topics like the LGBT topics to the top of trending on things like TikTok, especially. That is a thing that has been happening. The outcome is always what they intended. Sergeant Major asks, you mean LBJ intentionally kept us in Vietnam until his term was over? Yep. Oh, this is good. For those of you who don't know, this is my dad. What kind of redneck radical MF raised you? Damn, Sergeant Major, is it bourbon 30 already? That's a good cup of coffee. Y'all should click on the link below and buy me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/brushfiremind. Help this thing stay hot and warm. So he goes on. I'm not going to pull up any more of the clips. He goes on in this speech to give us this rambling thing about the he goes on the rambling thing about the concentration of power in oligarchs and how we have to always be vigilant. It's a very thinly veiled call to action for everybody to do whatever they can to resist the Donald Trump presidency, the Trump agenda, etc. He basically says, look, I know I lost. I know I lost the election and y'all don't want my bullshit in here anymore, but y'all got to keep fighting. Y'all got to keep fighting for all the communism that we tried to put into place. Right? So we get a lot of that out of him. And then, I shit you not, he goes on to take credit for curing cancer. Let that sink in. And he does it sneaky. He basically says we can expect for AI to be involved in helping us get to the cure for cancer because I called for curing cancer. Let me take you back about 4 years real quick. Let's see. Biden, one of his campaign platform spikes in 2020, and I know it's hard to remember because he spent basically the whole year in his basement. But one of his campaign platform promises was that he was going to cure cancer while he was president. He called it his cancer moonshot. We're going to cure cancer while I'm the president. Cameron says, play that clip. I think it's the clip that I've got. I think it's right up.
Toll for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence is the most consequential technology of our time, perhaps of all time. Nothing offers more profound possibilities and risk for our economy and our security, our society, for humanity. Artificial intelligence even has the potential to help us answer my call to end cancer as we know it. But unless safeguards are in place, AI could spawn new threats to our rights, our way of life, to our privacy, how we work and how we protect our nation.
See, like I said, he's trying to take credit for stuff. He tried to take credit for the hostage deal. He's trying to take credit for AI curing cancer in the future. Waller says, rumor has it Russia has a cure for cancer. You know what? We could do a whole show on the cure for cancer and why we don't have a cure for cancer. And I'm not even talking about the conspiracy theory, which is a reasonable conspiracy theory that, frankly, the pharmaceutical companies don't want to cure diseases because curing a disease costs you a customer, right? If you teach a man if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you lose a repeat customer, right? But there are some other problems with curing cancer, mostly cancer is not a specific disease. It's a mutation of the cells, and it's caused by many different things, and they don't repeat. So it's not like it's not like a virus where you have a specific target, and what you need to do to prevent the virus is create basically a defense system that recognizes that specific virus and destroys it. Cancer doesn't work that way. But that's a whole conversation to go down. Now, I'm not saying that cancer can't be cured, that there can't be a cure for cancer. I doubt that there can be a unified cure for cancer, because there are so many different types of cancer. I believe there will have to be multiple different ways to target the cancer for curing it. And it's so many factors go into that. And yeah, the AI could very well be a big part of curing cancer in that way. Sergeant Major's in rare form this morning. He says Russia cures cancer by visiting Ukraine. Waller points out the Biden admin has harmed AI more than any admin could ever hope to. They determined winners and losers through corrupt regulation. That is going to be a whole show. And so, okay, I need to go ahead and close this up. So let me talk a little bit about what we're going to be looking at going forward. So Monday is the inauguration. I have cleared my calendar up for the day on Monday to do coverage on that. I'm still not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but it's probably going to look like me just popping up live here and there throughout the day as things develop, because I fully expect that on Inauguration Day, we're going to see protesters, unless it's snowing. I mean, as much as I hate having cold toes, snow is good for conservatives politically, because Democrats don't show up to vote. They don't show up to protest. They don't do shit when it's cold outside. They're soft. They're weak. But the first 100 days, we're going to be looking at what Trump does. He's made some big promises, some things I like, and some things, frankly, that I don't like. But like I said yesterday, a lot of us went into that booth. I'm a big fan of the Donald. I really am. I'm not as excited as I had hoped to be about some of his nominees. And I understand that it's likely that Matt Gaetz was always meant to be a sacrificial goat, and Pam Bondi was the fallback. Now, in fairness, there's a lot of fair criticism to be leveled at Pam Bondi as the nominee, but I'll grant you, I almost covered this morning, but this was too good to pass up. Pam Bondi's performance in the confirmation hearings yesterday was outstanding. She was absolute just bulldog in front of those shit libs. You know, not Adam Schiff. No, yeah, it was Adam Schiff asking, or will you weaponize the DOJ against Trump's enemies? Are you going to prosecute Jack Smith? Are you going to incarcerate Liz Cheney? And she said, those are hypotheticals. I haven't seen the files. It's not a hypothetical. Yes. I mean, the only way you could say those words out loud is if you don't know what the word hypothetical means. But she did a fantastic job on that yesterday. But we'll be looking at what happens with legislation around AI. AI is a big question. I'm not going to say it's a big problem, but we're going to be talking about AI a lot for the next couple of years. Because let me tell you this, you can take this to the bank. If you do not currently believe that artificial intelligence is the direction we're going, you are Blockbuster circa 2000. Right? You are every big business that didn't buy a website in 1995. I'd love for you to try to name a few. Right? Sears did not go online. It's a fad. It's not going to be anything. Whoops. Right? If you were not getting into the internet in the mid 90s, you were not going to stay in business. That's what AI is today. And frankly, one of the reasons that AI is as powerful and as rapidly expanding today as it is because every big business out there looks back on the 90s and the internet phenomenon and says, we're not going to make that mistake. We are not going to make the mistake that so many businesses made in the 90s by assuming that this is a fad and it's just going to pass us by. So we'll be watching out for AI legislation. We'll be watching out for what happens with gun rights legislation, because Trump is not, he's not the best one I've ever seen on gun rights, but, you know, he's not Biden or Obama either. You know, like I said yesterday, a lot of us went into that voting booth, and the truth is what you voted for in Donald Trump was essentially a 1980s Democrat. There was not a Republican on the ticket. Your choices were between an 80s Democrat or a 1930s socialist. So, y'all, that's about all. That, yeah. So, I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it there. Thanks for watching this morning, guys. Tomorrow's Firearms Friday. Be here. Have your hot cup of coffee. Click on the Buy Me a Coffee link and send us a buck. Thanks for watching this morning. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.